What if the most powerful warnings in Scripture came from a man no one listened to, a man with no title, no influence, no pedigree, a man forgotten by history, yet whose words shook empires and still echo through time? This is the story of Amos the prophet that no one heard. They worshipped in crowded temples. They sang songs of praise. They offered sacrifices with dazzling rituals. And yet, while their hands lifted in prayer, they crushed the poor under their feet. They built palaces of ivory while the cries of the hungry rose like smoke to heaven. Amos stood in the dust, unseen, unheard. But his voice thundered, "Justice is not an option, it is the heartbeat of God." From visions of locust swarms devouring the land, to the fiery collapse of a kingdom. From rejection, isolation, and scorn, to a hidden promise of hope that reached beyond Israel itself, this is not just a story of the past. It is a mirror held up to us today. And so we begin with a shepherd in Tekoa, a man the world ignored, but God himself chose. Chapter 1. The Call in the Wilderness. He came from Tekoa, a small village tucked in the rugged hills of Judah, far from the bustling palaces of Jerusalem or the sacred rituals of the temple. His hands were rough from tending sheep. His clothes smelled of the open field. He was a man of the soil, cultivating sycamore fig trees that demanded constant care. There was nothing in his life that suggested destiny. No priestly lineage, no prophetic training, no seat among the elites of Judah. Just a shepherd, just a farmer, just Amos. And yet in the silence of the wilderness, God spoke. Not through dreams of royalty, not through temple choirs, but through the quiet voice that breaks through ordinary days. Scripture records it with startling simplicity. The Lord took me from following the flock and said to me, "Go prophesy to my people Israel." Amos 7:15. In one sentence, his life turned upside down. God does not call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And Amos would become living proof. This was no ordinary assignment. If God had sent him to his own people in Judah, perhaps the burden would have been lighter. But the call was shocking. Amos was sent north across the border into the prosperous kingdom of Israel. Imagine the scene: an untrained shepherd from a rival land daring to step into the heart of a nation at its golden peak and proclaim its downfall. The very audacity of it is enough to shake us even now. Why Amos? Why not a priest from Bethel or a scribe from Samaria? The answer reveals a truth that still unsettles the powerful God often chooses outsiders to pierce the illusions of insiders. The priests were compromised. The nobles were entangled in luxury. The prophets for hire spoke only what people wanted to hear. But Amos, he had nothing to lose. His loyalty was not to the palace, not to the temple, not to the applause of the crowd. His loyalty was to the God who pulled him from obscurity and sent him into history. This choice echoes a pattern that runs through Scripture. Moses, a fugitive shepherd, called to confront Pharaoh. David, the youngest son, pulled from the pasture to face giants. Mary, an unknown girl from Nazareth, chosen to bear the Messiah. Time and again, God bypasses the halls of influence to speak through the overlooked. Amos belongs to this lineage of unlikely messengers, voices rising from the margins to shake the center. But Amos's mission carried a twist that no one expected. He would not comfort Judah, his homeland. He would not simply affirm their sense of being God's chosen. Instead, he was commanded to confront Israel, the northern kingdom, prosperous, arrogant, and deaf to correction. For Judah, this might have seemed like a victory. Yes, go and condemn our rivals. But for Amos, it was not triumph, it was terror. He would walk into hostile territory, to a people who did not ask for him, did not respect him, and would surely reject him. And yet he went, without hesitation, without bargaining, without delay. He stepped out from Tekoa, leaving behind the pastures and the orchards, walking into destiny. This is the call in the wilderness. God taking a man with no credentials and turning him into a voice that history could not silence. But what awaited Amos in Israel was far more dangerous than he could imagine. Chapter 2: Israel's Golden Mask. Israel was shining. Under the reign of Jeroboam II, the northern kingdom reached what many believed was its golden age. Borders stretched wider than they had in generations. Trade routes pulsed with activity caravans pouring into Samaria with goods from Damascus, Tyre, and beyond. The economy was booming. Palaces rose high above the streets. Fortified walls gave the illusion of safety. And in the hearts of the people, a dangerous belief settled in: we are untouchable. The temples overflowed with worshippers. Pilgrims journeyed to Bethel and Gilgal, their voices lifted in songs of praise. Festivals dazzled the crowds with sacrifices, rituals, and music that echoed across the courtyards. Outwardly, religion was thriving. The nation looked like a picture of prosperity and piety, but Amos saw through the mask. Behind the golden walls, the stench of injustice rose to heaven. While nobles reclined on ivory couches and drank wine from bowls instead of cups, the poor were sold for a pair of sandals. Merchants eager for profit cheated with false scales, turning sacred marketplaces into dens of exploitation. Judges twisted justice, favoring the wealthy who could afford bribes, while the cries of the helpless went unanswered. The widow, the orphan, the stranger, those whom the law of Moses commanded Israel to protect, were trampled beneath the feet of luxury. Amos 2:6-7 thunders against them. They sell the righteous for silver and the needy for a pair of sandals. They trample the heads of the poor into the dust of the earth and turn aside the way of the afflicted. These were not abstract sins. They were daily realities. Wealth and